Holy smokes, I just spilled my Diet Coke. We are live. Welcome to College Football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Pflugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. And if you do as well, please subscribe to our channel. Smash the like button. If you like our content, share the video with your family and friends. If you want to support this college football rebel outpost with a donation to help us keep the lights on, hit that $sign where you make a comment, and I'll get you super chat as quick as I possibly can. Welcome everybody into the studio that sits on the corner of Keith Jackson Parkway and Kurt Gowdy Avenue. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid to become a legend with your comments in the chat room, with your phone calls later in the show. I want to thank everybody for coming on in. We got more breaking news on top of the breaking news. There is more breaking news. Besides the ACC Kumbaya moment, it is Florida State and the University of South Florida athletic directors are going to the Florida Board of Governors to ask for a rule, a change in the law of the state of Florida to where the universities can use their auxiliary funds to help pay for this new world in college sports. And that gets to the big elephant in the room. There's a lot of reporting going on And we told you here at Peek Around the Corner, the ACC were going to have their Kumbaya moment. They were going to lock arms. There were going to be some agreement. There's going to be a compromise, a great compromise, and everyone's going to be skipping along. And it happened. For months and months and months and months at Peek Around the Corner, as we've been reporting to you, the chatter behind the curtain has been it's been a complete consensus that something was going to get done. The Gore wasn't going to go from, ESPN wasn't going to drop their content. We're going to continue on. There was a deal made. There is a Kumbaya moment. But there is still the North Carolina stake in the ground. All this is true. All of it is true. The ACC, I think it got done what it needed to get done. The schools in the respect of this. Now they have a chance to be nimble. To be nimble later on this year. I.e., the stake in the ground that's coming from North Carolina. This doesn't solve, this only gets them to the place where they have the same options as the Big 12. That is the elephant in the room. We are going to go through the David Hale article. We're going to go through Ross Dellinger article. We're going to go through the breaking story that is going on right now about Florida State and Southern Florida asking for the ability for the athletic department to reach in and grab some of that money that's in the general fund, the auxiliary funds within the institution. Why? I'm going to tell you why. Even with all this dramatic unequal revenue sharing going on in the ACC, it does not get Florida State, Clemson, North Carolina, and everybody else, Miami, to the stratification line. That rev number is going to move up. It's always going to be a battle to get there. But this is the great compromise right now. They got a deal done right now. And what is in it for the others? Yeah, okay, security. The Gore that continues to go out to 2036. But there is something else. There is something else for a Wake Forest, for a Syracuse, for a Duke. We're going to get into all of it because it is not in these reports. College football, Peek Around the Corner. We have been saying for the past year, we expected the February 1st date to come and go, a new deal, pick up the option, however you want to call it. They're going to tweak the deal, more unequal revenue sharing, and it happened. This is the Kumbaya moment we've been talking about. It solves some things, right? It does. It does. But there is still a big elephant that is sitting in the middle of this studio. And it's not just me. I'm not quite an elephant. I'm close to the elephant, but not quite. We are going to get to it all. We are going to get to it all. I want to thank everybody. I'm not going to go through a roll call because we got too much to get to. Too much to get to. And by the way, Big 12, Big 12, there are going to be some institutions in the ACC. North Carolina, Miami, Clemson, Florida State, who are now going to have a resource advantage. Some of them are not going to have it, but some of them are. And you know what the Big 12 is looking at? And the ACC is trying to get to that spot where they can be nimble enough to counteract. That is your stake in the ground. We are going to cover it all. I want to thank everybody. I want to thank everybody for coming on in. Appreciate it. Appreciate it so very much. Okay, let's get to some of these articles. Some of you are saying, what the hell's going on, Greg? What is going on? Good question. Good question. Ross Dellinger, sources. ACC in process of extending TV contract with ESPN for 9 more years. ACC executives are in the process of formally ratifying the extension of its television contract with ESPN for another 9 years, sources tell Yahoo Sports. In a long-expected move, and as I reported month after month after month, this was the chatter behind the curtain, that this was going to get done. There was not going to be this. It was going to be extended, renewed, however the option pick up, however you want to phrase it. This is going to be a souped up, steroid-infused 2012 Syracuse-Pittsburgh situation. And that's exactly what happened. In a long-expected move, ESPN is exercising the option in its agreement with the league. The network's extension takes the contract, currently expiring in 2027 to 2036. The deal remains mostly unchanged. Again, there are some tweaks. Little bit of small tweaks. It doesn't solve the big issue. It doesn't. But it does get the ACC to a certain place where they can possibly act later on this year. And we're going to get to that. The North Carolina stake in the ground. They're the leader in something here. ACC presidents met Wednesday for a briefing and are expected to accept, if they have not already done so, the network's extension, though there is little to no other option. Within the ACC's deal with ESPN, the network, not the league, is afforded the option to extend the package by its own discretion. As part of the extension, the league's biggest brands, Florida State, Miami, and Clemson, are expected to play more football games regularly with Notre Dame, Fight, and Irish. The Irish are expected to play at least 2 of the 3 each season in a rotation. A couple things on that. Miami gets what they need. Miami gets what they wanted once again. Once again, we reported here at Peek Around the Corner months and months ago, and I don't know if anyone else has picked this up yet, but Notre Dame's contract with NBC is on a sliding scale. For Notre Dame to max out their NBC contract, they need to have their home football schedule reach a certain criteria, metric set down between both parties. And Notre Dame knows that USC may not want to have that rivalry game played every single year going forward, because the Big Ten, they've got other things going on. The Big Ten's got other things going on with the SEC when it comes to a possible scheduling agreement and things of that matter. So, the Irish, the NBC contract, they get what they want. They get what they want. And Florida State, Miami, Clemson, they're going to get a little bit more juice. They're going to get a little bit more money playing Notre Dame here. That's going to be in the ESPN contract. No question about it. No question about it, but it doesn't solve everything. You got to be patient here in this monologue. After this monologue, we're going to open up the phone lines and let everybody talk. Let everybody talk. We'll get to you super chats as quick as possible. After I go through these articles, we'll go to the phone calls as quick as possible. The extension paves the way for the league to potentially finalize a settlement with Clemson and Florida State that would keep them in the conference under possible alterations to the conference grant of rights in the league's revenue distribution structure. As Yahoo Sports reported in September, the sides negotiating for months now are inching closer to a resolution. So, hey, that 2031 tease that Ross Dellinger put up yesterday, and we said, whoa! And we all talked about it. I said it. You all said it. There's no question about it that Ross Dellinger is going to insert this into an article probably tomorrow, and it happened. David Hall also talks about this. We're going to go through his article in a little bit. That is really interesting. Again, Clemson and Florida State. A settlement, possible settlement, Clemson, Florida State with the ACC. Alterations on the conference grant of rights. Maybe having, look, it probably isn't going to be a grant of rights end date going from 2036 to 2031. I don't think that's, I said if that happens, I'm going to take the big L on this program because I said months ago, I don't see it happening. I even said it yesterday. I don't see it happening. But there is another option on this. And David Hale talks about it, and we're going to get to it. Maybe, just maybe, Clemson and Florida State are going to be able to get an agreement from the ACC that says the following. From 2031, at 2031, the exit fees, the cost to get out of the conference gets reduced. Now, it's going to get reduced anyways because there's only going to be 5 years left on the grant of rights. But a reduction in cost per year, maybe, something like that, to get Clemson and Florida State out of the courts. And why is that important? Why is that important? We talked about Clemson and Florida State's growing leverage. And I believe that. I absolutely believe it because I'm being told by everybody. This is the situation. Clemson and Florida State has got to get out of the courts. Got to get out of the courts. If Florida State and Clemson and North Carolina and Miami and Wake Forest and Duke and Syracuse and those that are pushing for private equity to come into the room or some sort of third-party involvement, at least to countermeasure what the Big 12 is looking to do, Clemson and Florida State's got to get out of the courts. North Carolina is banging on the drums, rattling their sabers, putting the stake in the ground later this year. We believe they're going to say something in public about this by August 1st. So there is motivation for Clemson and Florida State to get out of the courts. There is motivation for the other ACC schools to say, okay, we're going to give up more. We're going to get more money into this brand fund. We're going to try to get Clemson and Florida State more happy. Throw in Miami, more happy. ESPN television contract is at the heart of the matter. Florida State and Clemson's lawsuit against their own league was originally thought to be an effort to leave or at least spark change to both the ACC revenue distribution and the length of the league's grant of rights, which coincides with ESPN's television contract. Frustrated over the conference's long-term TV deal, Clemson and Florida State officials for months been negotiating with league administrators over concessions to remain in the conference. The ACC's ESPN contract pays a fraction of the SEC and Big Ten's media money and extends longer than any active major conference deal. A sore subject with the ACC's biggest brands, but a contract that each school's president ratified years ago. The potential willingness from the schools to remain in the conference is, for some, a shocking revelation and about face from their previous actions. However, there is perhaps no place to go. And there is not. Unless you're talking about the Big 12 where the cost-benefit analysis doesn't work out. But there is not a home in the SEC and the Big 10, something that we reported June 15th, even before that, but we made it official June 15th. 6 weeks later, Brett McMurphy put out an article. Every drop of that article is factual, was true, it was correct. Are you listening to me? Genetics faction out there on X and on the message boards. Everything Brett McMurphy said was absolutely true. Are you listening to me, Regal Knoll? Absolutely true, everything we said on June 15th. Florida State and Clemson have a humongous, powerful, valuable football brands. But there are other considerations that were going on. The Big Ten and the SEC are not interested at this time. So they had no place to go unless you were going to get the whole ACC implosion happening. And it wasn't going to happen. The courts, the muckety muck, it's going to take more years and nobody's got time for it, especially when, here is the elephant in the room, you got all this big money sitting on the outside of the room, and Brett Yormark is looking at it, and the AAC is looking at it, and the Mountain West Conference is looking at it. Well, guess what? The ACC's got to be able to look at it. They got to have options. They got to have options. And with this settlement, they're going to have that option. Those at Clemson and Florida State have felt that if they are legally unhinged from the ACC grant of rights, there will be takers. But it is unlikely that any SEC or Big Ten school will agree to accept a reduction in their TV distribution to add any school. For the SEC, that is especially so given its footprint. The league already owns a foothold in South Carolina and Florida. In order for the Big Ten and the SEC to expand, they would likely need more money from their television partners. A lot more money. More than $100 million a year. That's primarily Fox for the Big Ten and ESPN for the SEC. As reported by Yahoo Sports in September, Clemson and Florida State introduced a new revenue structure proposal during negotiations with the ACC that creates a separate pot of cash to be divided based on media value metrics and other football performance marks. The proposal was introduced to ACC university presidents and is one of the possible two-part solution to a settlement. The schools are proposing changes to the conference grant of rights agreement. The schools are proposing changes to the conference grant of rights agreement at the center of both lawsuits, such as possibly reducing the penalty fees tethered to the contract or an amendment in its length. I happen to believe, and there are reasons why I believe this, and I will take the L, but the amendment on its length, I don't think that is going to be much in play. The possible reducing of the penalty fees tethered may be in play. The unequal revenue structure is not a wholly new idea. Last year, Florida State Athletic Director Michael Alford and Seminole Board members suggested that the conference distribution formula for its television money, now evenly distributed, be instead tied to viewership and other media value data. The new revenue proposal is seen as a solution, perhaps maybe temporary, to avoid any court decision over the validity of the grant of rights. A potential loss in the court that immediately opens up the grant of rights could have a catastrophic impact not only on ACC, but other conferences, setting a precedent for all schools to break what were at first thought to be binding agreements. The changes would come after the conference approved last year what it describes as the Success Initiative. We've talked about that. We've talked about all of that. So that is Ross Dellinger's article. Again, if you just joined us, this is college football's peek around the corner. This is a temporary solution. This is ACC's Kumbaya's moment, as we have described over the last few days, and of course over the months, but the last few days we've said, even yesterday's live show, ACC's going to have their Kumbaya moment where a deal gets tweaked. It doesn't solve anything. It really doesn't solve anything except for one thing. It's going to make the ACC more nimble to possibly act further into this calendar year. We are going to get into that. Now, there is some, before I got to get into this. Before we get to the great article of David Hale, Andre Adelson, ESPN, and then Ross Dillinger added to it. Look at this. While we were coming on air, or while we were preparing to come on air live, take a look at this. Florida State Athletic Director Michael Alford, University of South Florida Athletic Director Michael Kelly are in Jacksonville at the Florida Board of Governors meeting to ask for a change in the state law to allow institutional support for athletic departments to help with rev share. Currently, athletic departments in the state must be self-sustaining. Ross Dellinger, this is significant to schools in Florida hoping to use university auxiliary funds in the new world of athlete revenue sharing. Now, there are some universities that have been using this for years, right? I mean, for years. California, UCLA, for example. Florida State and South Florida are asking for it. Now, Michael Alford, right? Florida State, they know this deal is coming. This little tweak, they're going to get a little bit more money out of this cash fund. But it ain't going to solve all the issues at Florida State. It doesn't get their athletic department above the stratification line. The stratification line being where they can compete at the highest level in college football and major sports with the other schools that are above the stratification line, or at least consistently. This is why USC went to the Big Ten, Oklahoma and Texas to the SEC. We've talked about this forever. Even with this deal going to be in place, Florida State is looking for some alterations. They're still looking. Look, we want the option to go into the funds of the university to help us pay for the rev share. Now, again, that rev share is at $20.5 million. Right? $20.5 million. But that rev share number is going to keep going up because it's the average, it's the taking of the average of the Power Four conferences athletic department revenues based on some metrics. And that revenue number is going to keep going up. It's going to keep climbing upward because the SEC and the Big Ten are going to make more and more money because the Big Ten's media package that they just signed is backloaded. They haven't even seen the big increases yet. And they're going to get some scheduling agreement, highly probable scheduling agreement that's going to give them more money. So that rev number is going to climb upward. Okay, let's get to the David Hale article. And then where I'm going to talk more about the elephant in the room. The elephant in the room. Hold on a second. Let me pop this baby up. David Hale, ESPN sources. ESPN OK's option television ACC Sports to 2036 basically says the same thing that Ross Dellinger said. And an agreement is critical step forward securing stability for the conference. With the television deal settled, the ACC is now working towards a settlement with Clemson and Florida State that could end those schools' ongoing lawsuits against the conference. This is what many of the ACC schools want. This is why they were willing to give up this structure, more money for Clemson and Florida State. They need everybody on board. They need the look of stability that the Big 12 has. So the ACC can have the option later in this year, as the House versus NCAA settlement becomes official in April and implemented in July, that the ACC will have the same options as the Big 12. ESPN declined to comment on picking up the option. After ESPN agreed to pick up the option, a decision the ACC Board of Directors voted to approve Wednesday, sources said the conference is working on additional value adds, which could include creating more marquee matchups in football and men's basketball. So basically, this is the answer to, somewhat of an answer to, the Big Ten and the SEC scheduling agreement that is going to put more money in the pockets of the Big Ten and SEC schools while giving more marquee names, marquee games of big brands playing big brands for Fox and ESPN. Multiple athletic directors told ESPN this could also involve using ACC's relationship with Notre Dame, Fighting and Irish to strategically create more games against the conference top tier teams. We talked about that. Under the proposed plan, a percentage of the ACC's television revenue would be included in a brand fund. That money would then be distributed to schools that annually generate the most revenue for the conference in football and men's and women's basketball. With Clemson, Florida State, Miami, North Carolina likely at the top of the pyramid, sources told ESPN. Should that agreement be finalized, something sources said is not imminent but was closely tied to the ESPN option, Clemson and Florida State would be expected to drop their lawsuits. Okay. Let's talk about it. So this is the Kumbaya moment that we've been talking about at Peek Around the Corner. They've all hooked up, right? It doesn't... More money, no question. A little bit more money to Miami, a little bit more money to Clemson, a little bit more money North Carolina, a little bit more money to Florida State. Possibly Florida State and Clemson are going to be able to get a deal where from 2031 to 2036, you have penalties to leave the conference, exit fee and payback of the grant of rights maybe gets reduced. Okay. Now you're going to ask, Greg, what is in it for Duke? What is in it for Syracuse? What is in it for Boston College, Wake Forest? What's in it for Pittsburgh? Because they're going to give up a little bit more of their money, a little bit more of their media money. Or they're going to at least see Clemson and Florida State, Miami get a little bit further out ahead of them. What is in it for them? Well, one, stability of the conference to go out to 2036. But they've already believed that. None of them thought that ESPN would not pick up the option. Nobody thought that, except the genetics faction. But what they are getting in return, is the possibility, with North Carolina leading the march, the possibility of bringing in private capital, private equity, the connections, the new sponsorships, to have their foot on the other side, to have their foot. They're going to be with ESPN. No question about it. They're going to continue to be with ESPN, but to create some relationships outside of ESPN. So when the day comes, they might have some more leverage. They might be able to get money. They might be able to get contacts that ESPN cannot. Now, ESPN owns the distribution rights to 2036. But there's other things that North Carolina and those schools can do to bring cash in. We just showed you breaking news this morning that Florida State Athletic Director Michael Alford, he's going to the Florida Board of Governors, asking for the ability for the athletic department to reach into the auxiliary funds of the institutions so they can pay for the rev share, so they can pay for everything. This Kumbaya moment doesn't solve the financial issues. It doesn't even solve the financial issues of the top programs. But they are going to get a little bit more money. So they do get a victory in that. But it does solve the issue of ACC schools. Even Jim Phillips can possibly get on board now with North Carolina rattling the sabers, rattling the cages, saying we've got to have the same options as the Big 12. ACC schools have been going to these private equity meetings. In fact, leadership of the ACC went to the John Wall Street presentation where Smash Capital was there, where others were there. ACC needed to get this done, not to solve any real long-term issues, because it doesn't, but to get a unified conference back together, to get Florida State and Clemson out of the courts, to have the same options as the Big 12 going forward. This is what North Carolina has been wanting, and they've got it, and we still believe. The reason why I could not come on for an hour and a half, because I knew I was going to be on the phone this morning. This is what North Carolina wanted. This is what Florida State and Clemson, look, they got caught in a court case that was going to go on for a lot longer. They're pouring millions of dollars into it, and they're getting something out of it. They're getting a victory out of this. They are. They're going to get a little bit more money. Look, I'm going to be honest with you. Florida State thought that they were going to be able to go to the Big Ten of the SEC. That if they won the court case, if they got a quick, but as we reported to you long time ago, it wasn't the case. I'm going to say something that's going to piss a lot of people off, but I've done it before and it's been accurate. So I'm going to do it again. There's a certain person at Florida State who's not a part of their athletic department, but a part of their board of regents, who has sold a bill of goods that he never could pay. Like, he threw out a lot of stuff out there that wasn't accurate, that wasn't true. And everybody knew it. Except for, there was a portion, and I don't blame them a bit, but there was a portion of the Florida State Seminole fan base that believed him. Somebody who's at the Board of Regents level The reporters knew it wasn't true. It hurt. It hurt Florida State's standing as a good partner with Big Ten and SEC. But now that has pretty much been rectified. Pretty much has been rectified. There's a lot of stuff that was said that was just not true at the time. And I did the best I could. I did the best I could to report that it was not true. But there was never an agreement between Florida State and the SEC, Florida State and the Big Ten. Never, never, never. No first party talks. Never, never, never. I can't count the many times the comment section, my DMs were filled with, Greg, you are a loser for saying this. You are absolutely wrong. No, we were never wrong. What happened, there was a certain person, and you could probably figure it out, somebody in leadership at Florida State did not do Florida State, at least their fans, their boosters, any justice in all of this. You were sold a bill of goods. It was false. And there was a genetics faction that picked it up and ran with it, and it was all incorrect. But Florida State is getting some sort of victory out of this. They're getting a little bit more money. No question about it. Clemson's going to get a little bit more money. They may be able to reduce the cost of 31 to 36 exit fees. And Florida State's involvement with private equity now, if this happens at a conference level and or at a school level with independent investors, all becomes more doable. Way more doable. Again, let's get to the big elephant in the room, private equity. We have been talking about private equity for months. We said it's going to be the story of 2025. We have put up the invasion of private equity, holy smokes theater. It is still the story of 2025. February 1st was not going to be the story of 2025. We said that for months. Doesn't really solve any issues. There are some victories in there, more money, no question about it. In return, those schools, the others, Wake Forest, Boston College, if Florida State needs more cash, Boston College and Syracuse and Wake Forest and Pittsburgh and Georgia Tech, they are expecting North Carolina with Florida State and Clemson now out of the courts when that happens to lead the way on private equity. That's the story of this year. The ball is in the Big 12's court now. The Big 12, they're not going to be able to get any of these ACC institutions in some realignment. Not for years. The Big 12, Brett Yormark, has been working the phones, working his Big 12 presidents on private equity. He's brought in some major sponsorships. Talking about a new relationship. Brett Yormark wants to have the ability of the Big 12 to have a better leverage when it comes to the next media negotiations, to have a relationship with private equity that has connections with big streaming giants. There are schools in the Big 12 that are busting at the chops to get into that third-party money for the same reasons that the ACC, the same reasons that Mike Alford went to the Board of Governors. These schools are strapped Strapped. And I don't, look, I get it. Everyone says, oh, our schools, we're going to be able to do the revenue share. Easily, Greg. No, none of this is easy. None of it is easy. None of it is easy, especially when that revenue share is going to keep going up. So the ball is in the Big 12's court now. What are they going to do? And look, marginally, this is a good day. I'm saying marginally. This is a good day for UConn. This is what UConn wanted. This is what Brett Yormark anticipated. This is what everybody anticipated. A new deal, tweaked the deal. ACC, the option goes on in 2036. But, Brett Yormark wanted to make sure, it got done. Okay, it got done. Over the other side of the wall, they tweaked their deal. And now we're going to go back to head towards the discussions of UConn, of private equity, of Brett Yormark. Marginally, this is a good day for UConn. Stability in the ACC, no poaching from the Big 12, and ACC more nimble to act on private equity later in the year if the Big 12 acts. And if the Big 12 acts on private equity, there is UConn in some of those deals. That's what we've been saying for months. Giving you the peek around the corner. So today was marginally a pretty good day for UConn. Because UConn and the ACC, I don't know where that came from. I don't know where a lot of this stuff comes from. But anyways, that is not part of the story. We are going to get to your phone calls right now. We're not going to waste any more time. Phone calls right now. Let me get to some of your comments here. The ACC network may not. There is zero. Christopher McDonald. There's zero showing the ACC network is in decline, and neither are its services. Cord cutting won't impact these conference networks for years. They're already impacting the conference networks. Subscription numbers have already gone down for the SEC and the Big Ten. Now, that was before Big Ten's latest expansion, so the numbers went up. Subscription base has gone down. What has kept the Big Ten network being able to keep paying out the same amount of money for the third tier television content is because of the revenue money has shot upwards. Because the ratings, even with the lower subscription, the ratings have gone up. They've been able to get more national advertisers on there to get when they got the Los Angeles cities in Big Ten country. So the Big Ten network revenue has kept up, but the subscription base has gone down. The ACC network is done pretty good, but can it continue 4 or 5 years from now? That is a big question. But the subscriber base has already been hit. It has affected the networks somewhat. How does the ACCP work with teams wanting to leave in 2031? Doesn't private equity want a longer-term binding agreement so they can get their money back? Some of those, yes. Some of those reports early on, 20 years agreement, whatever. But that is not what we've been hearing, CFB Plus. We've been hearing private equity agreements that would get in and get out. Now, there'd be money owed to the private equity, but there wouldn't be this long, elongated binding agreement. I mean, for example, and this is just an example, if private equity comes in with the ACC, or forget about the ACC, the Mountain West Conference, and private equity says we're going to give you an upfront, give you infusion of cash. And then we are going to have these new sponsorships money come in. We know that we can give you more money, Mountain West Conference. And because you're going to get more money, more that infusion of cash, new sponsorship money, new whatever, signage in your stadium money, because we're bringing it to you. We're bringing you the contacts. Now you can use that money and you can help your value of your conference. And then when you have your new television contract, we can, by the way, help you leverage that with your current media partners, because we have relationships with this streaming partner. And so more money is going to come to the Mountain West Conference, and then private equity is going to get paid. And then I'm just telling you the good case scenario. And then when Mountain West Conference signs that new media contract, maybe that term with the private equity, leaves the stage for that term of the contract. What we've been hearing, these are not going to be long-term binding contracts. Private equity is going to come in 4 or 5 years, then go out, and then may come back in again, and then go out. That is exactly what we've been hearing here at Peek Around the Corner. That's the chatter behind the curtain. I know it was first reported they would have to sign on for 15 to 20 years. That's not what we've been hearing. So we shall see. Now, there's all types of deals that are being floated out there, though. Conference levels, schools levels. There are private investors knocking on the door of these athletic departments saying, can we please take over this certain revenue stream that you guys got? Can we take it over? Because we can make you more money. And you get that extra money, we get part of that extra money. But regardless, you are not going to be out of money. In other words, these private investors are going to be betting on themselves, and the athletic department's not going to take on any or too little risk. But these are smaller deals. Those type of deals are being propagated. I mean, those are getting pushed everywhere right now. So there's all different types of levels of what these deals are about. But ACC gets private leverage just for the top brands to leave, or maybe the top brands won't leave. Or maybe the private equity, I'm telling you guys, if you don't think these ACC schools, now you might think it's a terrible deal. That's fine. It could be a terrible deal. I'm not sitting here supporting private equity. I'm telling you that these ACC schools are spending a whole lot of time talking about it. There are pro-private equity institutions in the ACC and the Big 12. I get that a lot of you are against it. I don't know if the GORE is going to get amended to 2031. I don't think that's going to happen. I think the penalties might get reduced from 2031 to 36. The ACC network is making money for the schools and ESPN. The ACC network, ladies and gentlemen, is not the problem for the revenue of the schools. It's the tier 1 contract. That's the problem. It's way undervalued, and it's way under what the Big 12 schools are getting. The ACC network is giving more revenue to the ACC schools than the ESPN Plus deal could ever get the Big 12 schools. So Big 12 and ACC both have their advantages against each other. The ACC network, the Big 12 schools would love to have a Big 12 network tied to subscriptions and revenue and ad rev, but they don't have it. They have a flat fee based relationship with ESPN Plus. But the ACC would love to have the Big 12 Tier 1 contract. And by the way, the Big 12 are going to be able to renew their Tier 1 contract in 2031. The ACC will not be able to do it. It goes on to 2036. So there are advantages and disadvantages. One of the big advantages that the Big 12 had was all their discussions around private equity, private investors, private capital, having the options. They've been working on it. And the ACC has fallen behind because they haven't been all on board, right? They've got schools suing the conference suing the schools. So they haven't been all on board. Now they're going to have that opportunity. ACC leadership did go to the John Wall Street presentation on January 20th. On January 20th, they did go to the presentation. Ryan Willie, the ACC just slammed the door on your mark? For now, yes. But I believe that your mark was anticipating this. Everybody was. Everybody was. And look, I thank you for the super chat. Well, not everybody. Not everybody. The genetics faction and others thought something was going to happen big on February 1st. The ACC just slammed the door on your mark. Thank you for the super chat. Ryan Willie, thank you for your generosity. Once again, I appreciate it. There is, I had this question. Rocket Rant, Thoughts and Prayers, the Big Mountain Podcast. I don't know. I didn't listen to their podcast. Thank you for the super chat, Rock and Rant. I do appreciate your generosity. Again, I don't know what they said. All I said yesterday is I can't watch them because they're hooked. Because they've associated themselves with the genetic faction, which is wrong about everything. I mean, and it's okay to be wrong. It's okay to be wrong. It is. It really is. Just take the L once in a while, but they don't. That's the problem. That is the problem. But I don't know what the Big Mountain Podcast said. But I appreciate the super chat. Thank you, Rock and Rant. I do appreciate it so very much, your generosity. Yeah, well, that guy's absolutely delusional. I don't think any of us has ever witnessed something like that in our lives. Hopefully you guys never have. I've never have. My goodness. Let's get to your phone calls here. I'm getting a lot of reports, but I think your phone calls are more important. Let's get these phone lines open. 763-260-1333. 763-260-1333. The lines are open. John Grove, Yukon Huskies, come on down. Hold on 1 second.
Call from
Rick.
Rick, can you hold on for just a moment, please?
You bet.
I appreciate it. John Grove, Yukon Huskies, come on down. ESPN will fit the bill in TV partners. We'll have a better basketball matchups. Also, I won't say that last part, but John Grove, thank you for the super chat. Thank you so very much for your generosity. I do very much appreciate it. Again, we here at Peek Around the Corner, we're not promising a rose garden, but you all know that late last year we said that UConn, Big 12, there was not going to be any decisions. Yes, no decisions. No, it was going to get put off until next year. And then like a week later, that exact thing was reported out in the open. We gave you the peek on that. I'm just telling you, this was a marginally good day for UConn. Marginally good day. Doesn't mean it's going to happen. It does not mean it's going to happen. It all depends on what type of your mark, the deals that they're looking at, if they're actually going to pull the trigger. If they pull the trigger on a deal that has UConn involved, then it's probably going to happen. That New York money, that private equity New York money and all those sponsorships in New York, well, they would love to add a big old market that UConn is involved with into the Big 12. They would love it. They would love it. But is it enough to get it done? I do not know, but we are going to follow this story here at Peak Around the Corner. Ryan Thomas, Greg will eat a cheeseburger. That's probably true before genetics is right. Ryan Thomas, you are probably, unfortunately, accurate on that, because I am going to eat a cheeseburger on this show. There's been a couple times last year where if a certain team would have won over another team, I would have had to eat a cheeseburger live. Thank God it did not happen. Thank God it did not happen. But I'm expecting more of those donations next year, those very kind donations to try to get me to eat a cheeseburger in front of this camera, which could end up being a very horrific visual. I'm just putting that out there. Thank you, Ryan Thomas, for your super chat once again. I do appreciate it. Rick, I apologize for the long wait. The floor is yours, sir.
No worries, my friend. Looks like a genetics ate a cheeseburger. I was really worried. It seems like they always dump all of this stuff in one big group on a Thursday, so they can get out of town early on Friday or something. But I was going to call. I was calling about two things that Ross Dellinger tweeted, and you haven't even brought them up yet.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
First one is regarding the collective association.
Oh, yeah.
And they're getting together with their 45 collective leaders to discuss the House settlement and their, quote, own collective bargaining proposal, close quote.
Yeah.
And they're scheduled to meet with the lawmakers as well.
Yep.
So it appears to me, and you can disagree, that they sure look like a players' union.
I'm putting up the tweet here by Ross Dellinger. It was yesterday. The Collective Association, a group of donor collective directors, is meeting next week in Washington, D.C. More than 45 collective leaders were gathered to discuss the House settlement and their own collective bargaining proposal. TCA has meetings scheduled with lawmakers as well. There's a coaches association that is also meeting with lawmakers as well. Like, Rick, everyone is starting to anticipate. We talk about this Kumbaya moment that we anticipated, the ACC tweaking a deal just to get something done, right? I think now everyone is starting to say, yeah, there's going to be another Kumbaya moment, and it's going to be a federal carve-out. So everyone wants to make sure that they're a little bit of what they want to happen is in that federal carve-out. I read this possibly a little bit different than you read it. 45 collective leaders, a collective association, a group of collective directors. These are outside money, right? Collective, right?
Yep.
So there's a lot of money in there. There's a lot of power in there, right?
Big money, big power.
Yes. We'll gather to discuss the House settlement and their own collective bargaining proposal. I could be wrong, okay? I think a collective bargaining proposal within the federal carve-out. Like They're going to DC to say, because they know they're working on this, right? To say, we want, like what a lot of people have been saying, this federal carve out, I'm scared of it, but I think I need it. I think I want it, but I'm scared of it because it's not going to be flexible enough. It's not going to be flexible enough to the labor equation of this. But I think people want their voices to be heard, saying, if you're going to do this federal carve out, the collective leaders, the third party, we want our say in this, right? And this is our like collective bargaining proposal. I think that's a word from them to say, you know, this part of it where people can look back into the agreement and try to have some representation for everybody involved, that type of thing. But I think this is within the possible federal carve out. But you let me know if you think I'm wrong on that. Go ahead, sir.
Well, if I've got these people correct, the collective association is the individual collectives for each school that has a collective.
Yes, sir. Yep. So do I.
That's the group, right? And they are quasi associated with the university.
Yeah, and they don't want that clearinghouse to be so strict, right?
Correct.
Yes. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
But that's also when I said they're quasi associated with the school. They get their money from the student, a cut of the student athletes' nil deal, right? They're not paid by the university.
Yeah, you're right. You're correct. Yes, sir.
So who's their master? The university or the players? The players.
Well, and soon to be the clearinghouse in terms of the House versus NCAA settlement.
And that's my next question to you on the Dellinger tweet.
Yeah.
The one he had regarding dozens of objections have been made.
Oh, yeah.
Filed raising concerns over the House settlement, and more are expected before the deadline on Friday.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Yeah.
That's telling me that, that judge I think is going to delay the settlement.
Possibly. I think the chalk is that it gets approved in April, but you could be right. I might be guilty of falling into a silo here, Rick, in where I'm really starting to believe. Now, I did not, okay, so I keep saying I'm going to take the big L, Rick, right? I say I'm going to take the big L if Florida State actually does the notice of withdrawal on August 15th. Well, it didn't happen. I said I'm going to take the big L if February 1st becomes a big event where the Gore goes to 2027. I'm going to take the big L. Well, that didn't happen. So I keep saying I'm going to take the big L, and I keep avoiding these big L's, right? Right? Well, I'm going to tell you one right now, Rick. And this is the one that everyone's going to get me on. This is the one where I'm going to stand up in front of the mic and say, I'm going to take the biggest L in college football YouTube history. Rick, and I'm probably guilty of falling into my own information silo here. But I think, really, really, really believe, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I think everything is hurtling towards a federal carve-out. And I think everybody is running to Washington, D.C., and they're really negotiating with Senator Booker, Senator Cruz, Senator Blumenthal, and they are going to try to hammer this out. They want a voice in it, and this is going to be the solution, bad or good, everything in between. And I think we are hurtling towards this. I think it's quickening. I think it's quickening towards a federal carve-out. If I'm wrong, so in other words, the House versus NCAA settlement gets us to back pay, a deal on the back pay, a deal on revenue share. You got to share revenue. But after that, when that thing's going to get annihilated sooner or later, right? But then you're going to have that federal carve-out that's going to have antitrust. It's going to protect. It's going to be able to make it so football, the FBS institutions can actually make rules and have an enforcement arm. And it's going to be clumsy. It's not going to be perfect. But I think we are going there quicker than many people believe. And if we don't get there, if we don't have a federal carve-out, I'm going to take the big L on the show. What do you think of that, Rick?
I can see it going there. I'm not sure that it's not going to wind up being litigated.
Sure, and it might be a horrible idea, but
I mean, many things Congress has deemed legal have been thrown out.
Yeah,
but I was thinking more with regard to just House alone.
Mm-hmm.
That this individual case, this is still a lawsuit.
Yes, it is.
And it has to be resolved. And it has to be resolved either by mutual agreement or they're going to go right back where they said they were going to. And oh, by the way, I think February 1st or whatever, or 3rd, was supposed to be the trial date had they not agreed to the settlement. It was in February, right? Wasn't that the original trial date? If we don't get it settled, we're going to... Isn't that what the judge said? Going to take it to court in February of 25?
I don't remember the date.
Okay. Anyway, I think it was. Regardless, it's got to be settled. And if it can't be settled, then it's got to be tried. And that, there's no carve-out for that. Because whatever Congress comes up with, it can't be ex post facto. This has already happened. They can't backtrack. They can only create a law from today forward. So what you got here is, and that's what I'm saying, with all of these objections that have been filed that Dellinger points out to the House settlement, you know, a lot of them are talking about things like, well, Title IX.
Yeah.
And the impact of Title IX, you know, with regard to the distribution of that money.
Yep.
It's got to be settled.
Yes, it does. And I think, yep. And I think.
No, that's.
Go ahead.
No, you please.
Well, I was just saying, and I think eventually, and I don't want to belabor the point, but I guess I am. I think it gets settled by at least somewhat temporary by a federal carve-out, like some sort of, this is the guardrails. This is what we're setting up. We're going to make this law of the land. We're going to give antitrust. We're going to give, this is how you're going to work with the Title IX when it comes to distribution of money. Yes, the Department of Education just put out an advisory, but this is actually what you can do as institutions or whatever body governance you have. This is your power. You can do this. But then, you know, whatever term of this, you know, about every 5 years, we got to come back and we got to, you know, renegotiate this, whatever. But, you know, we keep talking about how this has to be settled. I don't think my dream of a collective bargaining agreement with student athletes having true representation by a union and all that stuff, I consider my dream dead for now. Like dead. But The federal carve-out, I think, is going to at least bring guardrails. And I'm going to disagree with a lot of it. I'm going to tell you, but it's going to bring at least some guardrail until other people argue against it, bring that to court, whatever. But I'm just saying, that's what I think.
Okay, and I think we agree there that it'll be a temporary solution, but I think that's what this House settlement is. This should have been in court and get resolved, but instead, this negotiation has kicked the can down the road, which the NCAA and the conferences find satisfactory to keep going. Let's just keep doing what we're doing without getting it resolved. Because kicking the can down the road works for us. That way we don't have to deal with the problem when the problem's ultimately resolved. And that's the same thing a carve-out is, I think. We can disagree, and I'm sure many will. But a carve-out is still going to be kicking the can down the road until it's ultimately resolved.
Yeah.
Because it's got to get resolved.
Yeah.
It's professional football.
Not quite. It can't be quite professional football. We've had this discussion before. That's one of the problems with all this. It can't be professional football because of Title IX, and students are not going to be drafted. Students are going to have more freedom to leave regardless whatever contract you have. It isn't going to be exactly professional football. Close, but it just ain't going to get there, in my opinion.
Well, there's nothing prohibiting women from playing college football.
That's fine. That's okay, but that wasn't my okay. Sure, there isn't, but these athletic departments, I don't want to go down this rabbit hole on this show, but college football is getting more professionalized, and it should be because it's making a whole lot of money for the owners, right? And labor needs a bigger representation, but I don't think it can go strictly to a professional based because of the attachment that the athletic departments have to the universities. And I don't think that's going away anytime soon. Anything else?
Okay, all I would say is that in Dellinger's tweet, he included a letter that was submitted to the court.
Okay.
And in it there's a whole paragraph devoted to the fallacy of name, image, and likeness, and the hypocrisy of amateurism regarding the money in football. So that'll be a factor the judge will take into account and rule on.
All righty, sir. Anything else, Rick?
Nope, and thanks for the time.
You got it. Appreciate it, my man.
Yeah, later.
Beautiful call, Rick. Jeff Kais, keep your head on a swivel. Your mark is about to strike. CFB Plus, here's a question. Do you have to be disgruntled if you are UNC in order to go down the PE road, or you can do it without being disgruntled?
from
James.
James, can you hold on for just 1 second?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not a psychiatrist or a psychologist, CFP plus, but I will say this: they had ACC had a Kumbaya moment today, but it ain't going to solve the issues. Not for North Carolina. Not for North Carolina. So they are going to be looking. They want the same options that Brett Yormark is looking at, and now they have an opportunity to have that option. Doesn't mean they're going to pull the trigger. It does not mean they're going to pull the trigger, but they're going to have that option. This is what they wanted. This is what they want. I don't know how else to say it. There's so much. I get that so much. So many of you are against private equity. I'm not going to argue that case with you. What I'm trying to report to you is there's discussions daily on private equity. But the ACC could not have serious talks, serious negotiations. They couldn't even get into real groups to talk about it, or they have subgroups, but they have not been able to act in accordance the same way the Big 12 has. So this is what North Carolina wanted. And they're going to put their stake in the ground on it. They want the same options as the Big 12. That's all I got for you. Go ahead, sir. The floor is yours, James. Let it rip.
Actually, I wanted to talk about that too.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think ESPN might have to actually give something to the ACC because out of all of it, they need Clemson's lawsuit to go away. Not FSU's and all that. They need Clemson's because Clemson is going after their media rights, saying that when they leave the conference, they no longer have the media rights. That gets dangerous to every conference because that's what holds the conferences in. And if all you have to pay is your exit fee to leave, that's all they would have to do. And what's to stop every major school from going, hey, we can form one gigantic conference with just the best teams ever. And all we have to do is pay $35 million and we can do it. They have to have Clemson go away.
I agree, yes. And maybe that's why they're willing to settle for less of a penalty of exit fee and Gore payout from 2031 to 2036. In other words, if they get that proposal, if they get that done, if it's a number, if Clemson knows the number that they would have to pay out the ACC, and ACC would agree to take it in 2031, it's going to be a big number, but it's going to be reduced from the realities of today. If Clemson gets that, Clemson's lawsuit goes away. Florida State will probably go away for and other reasons, the lawsuit. But then Clemson can start thinking about 2031 instead of 2036. Correct?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
I have one other thing. I don't remember where I saw the article, but it's an article dealing with the Miami, Wisconsin thing from the NCAA answered on it. And basically they said it's like they're an employee. They can quit and go work somewhere else. And I'm just kind of paraphrasing a little bit here because I can't remember the whole article. But they were saying that the language that the NCAA used could lead to where student athletes could stop playing for a school in the middle of the season and go play for another team.
Yeah. Well, yes.
Right in the middle of the season, just quit there and instantly go play for the other team.
Yeah, and of course, the sport isn't going to survive that, James.
Right, but that's the language that the NCAA had in that letter answer to them is what it basically sounded like they were saying.
Yeah, and this is one of the major reasons why I think that federal carve out is going to come soon.
Yeah.
Because as imperfect as it's going to be, and I don't think it's going to be flexible enough and all that stuff, I worry about it. But our sport that we love and the sport that we love, which we give our money to, which gives more opportunities to the student athletes, right? We are the golden goose, and we give our money to this thing that we love, this product, and the student athletes get an education, they get scholarships, they get money, they're going to get more compensation than ever before. Yes, they should be more representation. Yes, they should have longer health term plans and all that. Yes, but in all of this, we need to keep this train going. We cannot destroy the sport just for a justice cause rally. We need to save this sport so the student athletes can get better compensations and protections and health benefits 10 years down the line, 15 years down. So we need to save the sport. If you've got free agency 365 days of the year, I'm saying bye. You're probably saying bye. This channel's collapsing.
Yep.
This channel, I'm not going to watch that because it's no longer.
That's why I quit watching NFL.
Yeah.
That's why I quit watching the NFL.
Yeah.
But I do think that college is probably going to have to adopt some stuff out of the NFL. NFL. I think they're going to have to do like a team salary cap to keep huge amounts of money that some schools have from effect, for sportsmanship. You're going to have end up putting a salary cap. You can only spend X amount on your team. I think that's probably coming also.
I think that's going to be in the federal carve out.
Yep.
I'm a lot of this I'm speculating, guys, obviously, but I think that, but I don't think it's going to be like NFL, right?
No, I'm just using them because there's a salary cap.
I think
where you can only spend so much on your team.
But it might be more of a. I'm just guessing here, just speculating. It might be more of an NBA salary cap where we'll let the Buckeyes spend more than the cap. We'll let them go into what we call the apron. We'll let them go to the second apron. But if they do that, if the Buckeyes do that, if Michigan do that, if Texas does that, just a thought, just like the NBA. So anyways, go ahead, sir.
That was all I had.
You got it. I appreciate it. Great call, James. Appreciate it. Call again,
Thanks.
sir. Beautiful. Again, I'm speculating on that. Whatever this federal carve out is going to look like, antitrust, NFL has it. These sport franchises have it. Whatever comes down the chute is going to have some sort of, unfortunately, some sort of non-collective bargained somewhat of a cap.
From
Evil Badger.
The Evil Badger, Ryan Willie, is on the line. The floor is yours, sir. Go ahead.
Hey, Greg. Thanks for taking my call.
How you doing, buddy?
First, I would want to say when your previous caller said that the stuff about the Miami and Wisconsin debacle.
Yeah.
If a student athlete was to switch teams 1 week and be on a different team another week, the next week, it would absolutely kill the game.
Yeah.
Nobody would want to watch it anymore because there's no
There'd be no
continuity.
competition. It's just guys going out in the field and running around. Yep.
And I haven't renewed my season tickets for the Badgers, so that's mainly why.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I get it.
But
there's got to be some sort of roster management, competition, some expectations of the fan base where, my program, we're not going to have to, these coaches, these head coaches, there is a, Rick brought up the collective association, 45 collectives. going to Washington, D.C. There's also a coaches association that's also going to Washington, D.C. And their main point is we cannot spend 365 days a year recruiting our own players to stay another day. It's untenable. We cannot do it. We cannot be head coach. We cannot do this job anymore. There's got to be some structure. Yes, these student athletes are going to have some freedom to leave. There's going to be some window after their contract is run out. Or if they decide to leave, there's got to be some compensation coming back to the original university. So a lot of people agree with you, Ryan Willie. Absolutely. Go ahead, sir.
Because one of the Wisconsin quarterbacks, I think it was Fort Queen, still with the NCAA because of his eligibility ran out, according to the story I read. So I'm frustrated, and that's why I can't wait for a baseball season to start, and I won't be around as much as I am now because I'll be going to a lot of Brewer games.
No, I understand, Ryan Willie. I hope you continue to come to this channel, but you got to do what you do, sir. And hopefully, when we get through the winter in Wisconsin and Minnesota, when we get through the spring, when we get to the summer, our juices will start flowing once again, and hopefully you'll get those tickets. So whatever you want to do, sir, I back you up, 100% support you.
And one more thing. Hopefully the Badgers beat the Gophers at the end of the season so I can see you eat a cheeseburger on your show.
All right. Let's see if it happens. We're going to keep the axe. We're going to keep it, my boy. We're going to keep the axe. Let's go.
I don't think so. I think the Badgers are going to take it back this year. All right. Well, that's all I had. Thank you.
All right, sir. Ryan Willie, thank you.
Bye.
Great phone call. Beautiful. Florida man, will North Carolina still plant their flag by August 1st? I started out the live show saying absolutely yes, and it's clear what it is. To plant the flag by August 1st, North Carolina got what they wanted. They got their Kumbaya moment. It's going to give the ACC more flexibility to counteract what the Big 12 is looking to do with private equity. Private equity is the flag that needs to be planted. North Carolina, we believe, is going to speak about it in public later in this calendar year.
From
Moen.
Moen is on the line. The floor is yours, the evil Mr. Buckeye.
Well, Greg, what do we have here? The Fighting Irish win again. There's 14 teams in the ACC that are now essentially serfs to the lords of the ACC. And, of course, the king of the ACC, the team that refuses to be a full member, Notre Dame, gets everything they wanted.
Yep, those serfdom schools are going to be playing Notre Dame even less now, right?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Boston College, Pitt, Georgia Tech.
Yep.
Say goodbye to those big-time games against the Irish because those are reserved for only the lords of the house, Miami, Florida State, and Clemson. You've essentially become exactly what the Big 12 used to be. You've become a unequal partner in a program. They're going to pay you more. I've seen people mention on Twitter, X, that, well, they still have the ability to get those performance bonuses. Well, you know what? It's going to be a lot harder to get a performance bonus when your contract pays less.
Yeah.
I mean, they can still get those performance bonuses. We just tied a cinder block around their neck. That's all.
Yeah.
I mean, of course they can get those. No, those performance bonuses are going to go to Florida State, Clemson, and Miami.
Yeah.
Because they probably always were, but they just made it even more so now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you're a fan of the ACC as a conference, I guess, hooray.
Yeah.
Hooray, you get another 6 years at least of this arrangement.
Yeah.
If you're a fan of the other 14 teams in the conference, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, I guess you get
you're right. I bet the only victory in this for the other schools is now the Pac-12, the ACC will be able to act with the same nimbleness as the Big 12 when it comes to private equity, if the Big 12 chooses to pull the trigger and if Florida State and Clemson gets out of the court cases, which I anticipate in the next few months. This is what North Carolina has been working towards. I think this is what Wake Forest wanted. They're willing, they're willing to get Clemson and Florida State out of the courts, give them a little bit more money. Duke and everybody falls a little bit further behind, but now they have the option for a moonshot, private equity of some sort coming on in, because this doesn't solve anyone's issues, right? It doesn't. Moen, did you see what Michael Alford, the Florida State athletic director, and Michael Kelly, the University of South Florida athletic director, are doing today?
I did not, Greg. What are they doing?
Okay.
Getting around for a round of golf?
No, they are going to the Florida Board of Governors, and they are asking Florida to change their laws to where a Florida State in South Florida can go to the universities and take money out of their auxiliary funds and have the universities help them pay their bills in their athletic departments because of the new rev share era. That's happening today. So even with all this unequal revenue sharing, because this is just a tweak, this is the Kumbaya moment that you and I have been talking about. We both believe, we both have heard from all of our sources that this was going to happen, right? There's going to be,
absolutely.
Yeah, it was going to happen. But it doesn't really solve much of anything except for Notre Dame gets what they want. Miami and Florida State and Clemson get a little bit more money, but it doesn't solve the real issue. It doesn't get them above the stratification line. So you've got Michael Alford, who's known that this deal was going to be done, right? He's known this, but yet he's still going to the Florida Board of Governors to give public universities in Florida the same options as California and UCLA have been doing, taking money out of the auxiliary funds of the institutions to pay off their debts. What Rutgers used to do, what Maryland had to do for a couple of years before they got loans from the Big Ten. So this is not a solution. What we're talking about here is not the Kumbaya moment is not a solution. It only solves one thing. Couple things. One, Moen, what you just said. Notre Dame, happy days are here again because now they've got what they wanted when it comes to the NBC contract. Notre Dame, your problems are solved for now. But for everybody else, the only thing they get out of this is now they can have the same options as the Big 12 in regards to discussions around private equity. Because a lot of those universities in the ACC, they've been going to these private equity discussions. They've been going to these presentations. Some of these universities are pro-private equity. But now Phillips and everybody, they can sit down, have these talks, bring in sponsorships. They can do what Brett Yormark is doing because of this Kumbaya deal. That's the only thing that this really solved besides Notre Dame's issue. Go ahead, sir.
Sure, but I mean, that's on a conference level. What if your school wants to do private equity at a school level?
Well, then they have a better chance of doing that as well. Like Florida State couldn't even.
Well, I understand Florida State gets that. What about Boston College or Virginia Tech?
They have a better chance.
This has to decrease their value, Greg.
Yes. Yeah, and this is why they kind of went for this deal, right? Boston College, Syracuse. This can open up again, it's a miracle shot, it's a moonshot, private equity, but they have an opportunity to have real talks about it, because you're not going to have two schools suing the conference suing the schools. No private equity was going to have serious talks, something that they could pull the trigger on with Boston College, when we didn't know if the court case was going to resolve itself in a month, saying that Florida State and Clemson could leave for $0. No private equity there could be no serious talks in ACC country until they got on the same beam as the Big 12 is standing on. And now they're going to be able to get on the same beam when Florida State and Clemson gets out of the courts. And this is an opportunity for that to happen. That's the only victory in this for the ACC. It's a big one if it works out, but...
Yeah, but the biggest winner here, Greg...
Yes.
Yes. Are the people like me who now get to see the true colors of Notre Dame in full effect.
Yeah.
As I told you last week, they got everything they wanted. Mm-hmm. They get to cherry pick their schedule in the ACC now.
They don't have to worry about USC.
Don't have to worry about USC. Still get to schedule their softball 7-game schedule. They've got their NBC money. The ACC's paying them money. They get to keep all their CFP money. Fantastic. It's a great deal for Notre Dame. I mean, God, for a partial member to get to go in there and control an 18-team conference.
The playoff distribution money is going to change in 2026.
Absolutely is.
But then again, Notre Dame just went to the final game, so that look-in 28, they're probably going to get more than you remember, they're getting a little bit more than every ACC school is right now. Less than SEC and Big Ten schools. But that look-in is probably going to be pretty favorable for Notre Dame if they can get into the playoffs a couple more times before 28. But yeah, you're correct. You're correct, sir.
And the final thing I would add, Greg, is doesn't this seem like the perfect opportunity now that Notre Dame and the ACC have a new scheduling agreement for the Big Ten and SEC meeting on February 19th?
Yeah.
To discuss the Big Ten SEC scheduling agreement.
Yep.
And get 16 games a season out of conference, Big Ten versus SEC.
Yeah.
Marquee brands versus marquee brands. Get our media partners, pay us a little money. ESPN, you don't have to worry about ACC. Pay the SEC a little more money. Fox, CBS, NBC, pay the Big Ten a little more money. Get great games, and the gap grows larger.
Yeah, I would pretty much assume that is a fait accompli. This Clemson, Florida State, Miami, Notre Dame scheduling agreement where they all get a little bit more money is probably the answer to sort of an answer. Not really, though, but because the Big Ten and the SEC are going to make more. But, yeah, I think that scheduling agreement is going to come about pretty quickly here. On February 19th, they're meeting again. Mo, and before you leave, I just got it up on the screen here. A couple hours ago, Andrea Adelson, ESPN, Florida State Athletic Director Michael Alford and USF Athletic Director Michael Kelly are in Jacksonville at the Florida Board of Governors meeting to ask for a change in the state law to allow institutional support of athletic departments to help with rev share. Currently, athletic departments in the state must be self-sustaining. Ross Dellinger, this is significant to schools in Florida hoping to use university auxiliary funds in the new world of athlete revenue sharing. Because Mr. Moen, Mr. Buckeye, when this revenue share is set at $20.5 million. And that revenue share is going to go up every year. And that is based on the average of the Power Four conferences, athletic department revenues based upon a few different buckets of revenue that they base it on. The Big Ten and the SEC buckets are going to grow. The SEC contract has just started. Their new media money. The Big Ten media money package is backloaded. So you're going to see big increases here with the Big Ten revenue with their schools. You're also going to see the scheduling agreement between the Big Ten and the SEC, which is going to be another boost. So you've got Michael Alford once again. Look, he's going to the Board of Governors. He wants the ability to be able to get money from the auxiliary funds of the institutions to help pay the bills. Breaking news this morning, along with everything else, because this doesn't really solve the financial issues, but this does help them grease the skids to talk with private equity. Anything else, Mullen? You guys got a show tonight to cover this? What's going on?
No, we don't have a show tonight, but I think Wild Ute is going to be on the Miami Flow show with Rock and Rant.
Beautiful.
So I will promo that. I think it's at 8 o'clock East, if I'm not mistaken. But I will say this. Michael Alford should have made a call to Notre Dame before he went to that governor's thing, because apparently Notre Dame can negotiate whatever they want. So he should have brought that guy with him. He'd have definitely got a yes, and he'd probably walked away with some more funds too. So, but I'm sure Notre Dame would have got the better end of that deal. So,
yeah.
So.
Yeah.
All right, Greg, you take it easy, sir.
Beautiful. Thank you, sir. Nick Boardman, Virginia Tech Hokies. This doesn't fix anything. It's simply a tourniquet, but the patient is going to lose its leg. It doesn't fix a lot of things. But what this does is potentially gets Clemson and Florida State out of the courts. They get more money. They get this brand fund cash, a little bit more money, a little bit more unequal pay, a little bit more money for having Notre Dame on their schedule more often. All that is good. It's not going to solve their issues, but it gets them out of the courts. And if they're out of the courts, now ACC can, if they choose, keep along with the Big 12, because the Big 12 is looking at pulling the trigger on a few deals. So this gives the ACC some nimbleness. This is what North Carolina has wanted. So they're getting what they wanted too. Notre Dame is getting what they wanted. North Carolina is getting what they wanted. A chance to have options in private equity, because they've been going to every single meeting. They've been heading all these subgroup meetings. This is what they wanted. So again, I want to thank everybody for joining us this morning, going into early afternoon for people on the East Coast. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe, smash the like button if you like our content, share the video with your family and friends. We will go on live later again tonight if there's any other breaking news out there. Rock and Rant, Ryan Willie, John Grove, Ryan Thomas, thank you for your support, your donations. Thank you for your super chats. I do appreciate it very, very much. The title of this show was ACC's Kumbaya moment. This was a moment that we said wasn't going to happen. It was going to happen. For months and months, we reported there was going to be some tweak on the media deal. There was going to be a Kumbaya moment. We've been using the Kumbaya moment the last few days. It was going to happen. It happened. Doesn't solve anything, except for Notre Dame gets what they want. Florida State, Clemson, and Miami get a little bit more money. North Carolina got what they want. The big victory in all this is that ACC has the ability potentially to get Clemson and Florida State out of the courts And now they can have discussions with private equity. And who knows? Maybe the miracle shot works. Maybe the moon shot works. Maybe private equity bringing that money in somehow makes it all work for the ACC. A lot of people don't agree with that. And I have nothing against that opinion. It probably is true. But there's a lot of interest in that money that's sitting on the outside of the table. Big 12 schools and ACC schools have been going to the same meetings. They've been talking. There's been cross-pollination. And finally, it looks like the ACC will have the same nimbleness as the Big 12 in pulling the trigger, yes or no, on all these deals that are pounding on their table. There's a lot of different ones. It's not just all the same. There's a lot of different ones. And now the ACC schools individually and as a conference have a reprieve, right? Now they can seriously discuss the potentiality of having a relationship with a private capital firm, private equity firm, try to establish a relationship with a big streaming giant to gain leverage years from now. Who knows? Who knows what's in those deals? But there's a lot of them out there. And now ACC may be able to do what the Big 12 looks to be doing to pull the trigger on getting an infusion of cash. The breaking story above all of this tweak deal, this Kumbaya moment, ESPN picking up the option from 27 to 36. Beyond all that is Michael Alford, the athletic director, going to the Florida Board of Governors and asking for the ability to get money out of the auxiliary funds of the institution of the University of Florida State. That is a big, big news item. If that doesn't tell you the stress that these athletic departments, the ACC, the Big 12, and quite frankly, the smaller athletic departments in the Big 10 and SEC, they are strapped. They're looking to be able to convey, to be able to pay the maximum on revenue share for the student athletes. And whatever this carve out is going to be, there's going to be some sort of cap. These institutions don't want to give up the maximum of their front porch of the universities. They want to be able to promise to the student athletes all the money that everyone else is going to be sharing with them. Florida State goes to the Board of Governors. You're talking about Boston College, Wake Forest, Syracuse, Pittsburgh, these universities, Georgia Tech, they do not want to give up. They do not want to let go of the rope. They want the same ability to pay their student athletes, to recruit at the same level, to bring them in, to facilitate, to invest in the facilities. And what is the answer? Potentially outside money that wants to come in. And now ACC may have the opportunity to tap into that. Maybe, because of this Kumbaya moment. That's my take on it. That's been my take on it for a long time. And again, this is why we open up the Holy Smokes Theater. Private equity is now going to take center stage. February 1st wasn't the big date. It isn't. That's not the big news story of this year. We said it late last year, been saying it all this year. It's what's coming next. Keep your eyes on Brett Yormark. Keep your eyes on the Big 12. I hope you keep joining us here at Peek Around the Corner. We provide you the best peek around the corner that there is, in my humble fat guy from Minnesota opinion. Again, before you leave, please subscribe, smash the like button if you like our content, and we'll see you again. Until next time, from all of us at PATC to all of you, please, you all take great care of each other. Thank you so very much.